is Omar and we are here in the southern Chinese city of Changsha in Hunan province, and we are on the sidelines of the China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo. It's the third edition of the event, and it's the second day of the event, yesterday opening a major step forward in this relationship between the African continent and China. Now, of course, this expo focuses on all things business, trade. You have a lot of participants coming in from Africa, taking part in this third edition of the event. And you have to also remember, this is the first expo since China lifted those COVID restrictions. So a great move forward for people being able to travel, meet face-to-face, and engage with each other. And this is going to be one of the many topics we're going to be diving in today. I am fortunate to be joined by a lot more people that know about this relationship than I do. I'm quickly going to go through the introductions here. We have four distinguished guests. Starting on the right side of your screen, we have Mr. Zhou Xiaofei, the Vice Dean of China-Africa Economic and Trade Research at Zhejiang Gongshang University. Thank you so much. We also have Madame Tsisam Dakouni, the Chief RO from Achijariwafa Bank, a Moroccan financial institute. Thank you for joining us. We also have Albert Muchanga, the Commissioner for Economic Development, Trade, Tourism, Industry, and Minerals. Quite a long title, from the African Union. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we have Martin Kueti, PhD in International Development, who's now with Anhui Biochem. Thank you all for making time to join us today. And like I said, we have a bunch of questions to be diving in. I want to start with you, Albert. This Trade Expo, it's the third edition of it. We've seen progress in terms of the bilateral trade between China and Africa, 14 straight years that the African continent has China as its largest trading partner. What do you expect in terms of actual practical outcomes coming from this? Because it's not just about meeting and looking at products. What do you expect to be the result?
I think the first thing to look at are the mainstreams of the Expo and the forum. It's called the China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo, and the China-Africa Economic Cooperation Forum. So there you've got 3 or 4 distinct streams. The first one is the exhibitions, where we are showcasing what we are producing in Africa, what is being produced in China. That's the first stream, and quite a number of exhibitions, close to 1,500 are taking place. Then it's also networking.
B2B style.
B2B, government to government, government to business, through the fora which is taking place. Right now, when I came out, I was in the fora on corporate social responsibility. Yesterday, I was in a forum on quality infrastructure, and so that there's a meeting of minds on these issues. Then the final one, which is supposed to be the ultimate, is business-to-business transactions. So myself coming from the African Union, what I'm waiting is to hear the announcement of business-to-business deals that have been signed.
You want to hear those agreements?
Yes, I wanted to
those financial figures?
Yes, I wanted to, that's my expectation. I want to hear how much has been signed over what period of time. Those are my expectations.
Fantastic. Madame Dakouni, I want to jump to you. This is your first time at this expo, correct? You just got to China last November. So you coming into this event, you've only been here, what, 8 or 9 months. You hear Albert outlining some of his expectations, particularly the main focus is on those financial trade agreements being signed. As your first time participating, what has been your sort of feeling taking it in? I don't know if you've seen every exhibition or been to any of the seminars yesterday. What's it been like for you?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for inviting us. We have actually high expectation on the Expo. This is my first time, and I was quite impressed by the exhibition, the Made in Africa, and also all the booths and the number of companies that are present from Africa, but also from China. As you said before, This is the first edition of this Expo since
COVID restrictions.
the COVID restriction. So it's a great opportunity for us to meet face to face with the African player and Chinese player, discuss project, and also we hope to lead to quality project and have announcements on investment in our countries of presence.
So something very similar that Albert is sharing.
You were talking about trade figures. We achieved in 2022 $282 billion US dollar. The target that has been announced for the China Vision was 30 billion. Wow. I think we're near actually those figures, and we hope to see a more balanced, more diversified trade figures in our countries of presence.
That's something what me and Martin were talking about before our show today, looking at taking this relationship between the two parties, the two sides, a continent and a country, because there's a lot of narrative surrounding it. There's a lot of opinions coming out from different people and different countries that are not even African or Chinese. Everyone has an opinion. So throw that to you, because we spoke about this earlier. You had your thoughts. Because clearly this Expo is about business, it's about signing agreements, establishing trade. But you also said there should be finding a balance to bring more benefit, perhaps. I don't know if it's just you speak for Cameroon or the African continent. What are some of those things you envision to improve, make things better a little bit?
Yeah, thank you for associating me to this platform and then for this discussion. And I can agree more with what the other panelists just said right now. Focus on my own experience, because actually I'm working for Anhui Baokamba Pharmaceutical Company, which is a Chinese company. But in another side, I'm just like a linkage with China and Africa.
You're a perfect
with
example.
With the small owner business in Africa. And I also act as a counselor for this small business owner. That means I clearly understand what is happening on the field in both sides. And she just mentioned the huge gaps actually existing between the trade between China and Africans. I think to overcome these gaps, this meeting is really very good for Africa.
It's one step
exactly
in the right direction.
But we are still facing a number of obstacles, especially in Africa, because what is going on? African small business would like to challenge or would like to partnership
to grow,
to
get
grow
bigger,
out,
expand.
But due to number of obstacles such as regulation, what is happening is that how huge or how worth is a trade exportation between African small company business and the Chinese business owner. We clearly understand that the gap is very huge. But by the time that we have the opportunity to meet face-to-face and interact, exchange with those business owners between Chinese and African, I think it is already the first step that we need to cross. But actually, and since the 2018, the first edition, 2018, which was highly affected by the COVID-19, as you just mentioned, I think even now, when we look at the figures of the representative business from Africa, I think it decreased a lot.
That's something perhaps you look at the second half of this year, a lot of people looking at economic recovery. The first half of this year here in China, obviously difficult. Maybe that's something we see in terms of the bilateral relationship between China and the African continent improving. But your message essentially is events like this Expo, is just one step forward to kind of improving this. Okay. And I do want to include Professor Zhou, your research in relation to what we're talking about today. Martin talked about small businesses. Both of our guests here talked about engaging face-to-face, having networking opportunities. What's your sort of take on African businesses having an opportunity in the Chinese market? Because that's a lot that the focus is on. How can African products get into the Chinese market? That is not always so easy. What's your take on enabling this and letting it happen?
Okay, first I will say I'm very happy to be here. Yesterday I went to the exhibition center. I feel very excited. Yeah, I feel the atmosphere, and All people think about the business, but we think, as the guest said about, we need a face-to-face talk, and we need to meet people. Yeah. So from the music and dancing and cultural, so people can get in more close. So my part more about from the networking and the social capital side, I want to see for entrepreneurship and innovation, we need a lot of things: investment, labor, and the material kind of things. But social network is quite important. Yeah. So we can bring people on a platform. We will see the Expo as a window or bond. So from here, we can get lots of resources. For example, if you want finance, if you want technology, if you need high talent, so here we can fund it. So there are lots of big opportunities for businessmen from different disciplines, government, or even for entrepreneurs. So it will be good for people to create good idea and to make the business more smoothly, and helping to whatever from China to Africa or from Africa to China will be for easy to running the business.
But to make that happen, you need practical solutions. This event it happens every 2 years, right? So it's not like a constant engagement. Of course, it's a massive event. You have so many, 1,500 exhibitors, 70% increase compared to the previous one. Do you think more people need to physically go to each other's sides?
Definitely.
You think more, perhaps Chinese entrepreneurs, businesses need to go to Africa and African entrepreneurs need to come here? Would you support that idea?
Yeah, of course. I think although we have online, we can see each other. However, physically, face-to-face will be bring a real feeling, and we can talk in more depth and discuss about the details, and even for sign agreement, so it will be more efficient. And also, from my personal, I would encourage people to go overseas. For example, if the Chinese enterprises, you not just doing the trading or export, yeah. You need to go to travel and see what about the happen and the real situation, the environment, the culture, and the politics, policies. So you can discuss with, for example, the local African people and see the market, what they need, and what we can create for them. And for African businessmen also need to come to China, see what China has, and some interesting things they can bring to.
That is a topic I do want to get into later. It's about, you obviously have a lot of Chinese investments going into Africa, particularly in raw materials, resources, infrastructure. I would say those three are the major areas. And the question then becomes the other way of this bilateral relationship, investment from Africa, where is that going? But we'll get into that in just a moment. Now, I want to move to a conversation that ahead of this event, I did some interviews with other African nationals, and I asked them, they were all entrepreneurs, and I asked them what are the difficulties and what are some of the day-to-day obstacles. And one of them, perhaps this is a question for you, is the transfer of money is a challenge. I spoke with one Nigerian businessman. He said, I am doing import-export, I'm doing trade, but the efficiency to move money from African banks to Chinese, African banks don't have enough of a presence in China. I was hoping for some insight on this, because if you are moving money, if you are doing trade, you want to get paid in RMB if you are based here. You want to be given a local currency. Tell us a bit more about your bank's involvement, your goals in the Chinese market, and more importantly, what opportunities will your bank give to African businesses, not just Moroccan, but all of the continent?
First of all, for Atijariba Bank, we are a Pan-African group. We are the leading bank and financial institution in Morocco, our headquarters, and we are present in 27 countries, including 15 countries in Africa. We've been working with Chinese companies for many years, but since 2019 we wanted to bring it to the next level, because we believe in the potential of China and Africa cooperation. So our bank, for example, set up a specific division to boost the China-Africa corridor. We started by having this dedicated division in the headquarters with the specific person that are the entry points for our investors, either the Chinese or the African side.
Right.
We also launched several China desks in every country of presence of the group. So when a Chinese client talks to our group, he talks about Morocco, but he talks also about Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, Benin, Togo, Mali, Egypt, and so on.
Okay.
This is very important, and these are bankers that have the knowledge about Africa, about the product, about the laws, about the regulation, so they can advise those clients and they can help them on a daily basis. And the last step was actually the representative office that we set up in Beijing. So we had our approval from CBRC in April 2022. We got the registration a few months later, and I personally came here last November. We think that the physical presence here is very important to bridge China and Africa. This Expo is a catalyst. It's a very valuable initiative. But as you said, we need to have a follow-up. So this follow-up is actually the responsibility of every actor, even in the private sector, in the government, etc. Yeah. So that's the role that we are having in developing the China-Africa corridor. So we're meeting with clients, we're trying to advise them, we're liaise with the headquarters in terms of investment. We are trying to provide the financing, the cash management, the trade solution. Right. You talk, for example, about the currency. We have currency issues in some countries, like Nigeria, for example, or Egypt, where we have a shortage of dollar. The role also of our bank is to talk with these clients to try to find solution and to structure specific and tailor-made solutions sometimes for the...
jump in, but your clients, you mentioned that you have a China office, a China desk in a variety of African countries, and you listed them. But again, we're looking at the possibility of African investment coming to China. Because of course, Chinese investment going into Africa. Go ahead, because it has to reciprocate. Reciprocate, right?
You know, Omar, I think we need to be more practical on what we are really doing on the field.
Okay.
Practicality. Let's just take a small business owner in Africa who need to buy something, let's say in other African country, before getting to China and so on. I think the currency is a big issue because let's just see China as a great country. We know that China is the heart of the economy and trade around the world.
It will soon be the biggest in the world.
And the problem for us being African is that are we going to continue to use our CFA to convert in euro, in dollars, before purchasing some goods in Africa?
Okay, I answered that.
That's the main issue for small business owner in Africa. And when I'm discussing with those guys, they couldn't even attend such kinds of great events.
Just see
exactly. That's one of big deal that we are talking to let it be very practical as we want to see those results, because Europeans, as Americans, they're not facing the same problem like Africans, just moving into Africa from one country to another. If you have your money to purchase something from Cameroon, and let's say from Nigeria, as you just mentioned, just imagine, we have 55 countries in Africa. And we have...
Do you want to jump in?
Yes.
Let Albert come in.
Let me jump in at two levels. The first one is intra-African trade.
Intra-African trade.
Intra-African trade and the payments problems. We have foreseen that problem. We established an organization called the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is supposed to facilitate trade liberalization across Africa, removing tariff and non-tariff barriers, and eventually becoming a customs union. And eventually having one currency. But
I'm going to press you on that. When will that happen?
Yes, that is not going to come today, to tomorrow or today. So as an interim measure, we have been able to partner with the African Export-Import Bank to establish the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. It's already operating. Maybe we need to advertise it further, where traders can be paid in local currency, in each other's currency. Okay. Then at the end of the day, there are net settlements in foreign exchange. And in order to ensure that there are no delays in getting payments in foreign exchange, the African Export-Import Bank has come up with a facility of $3 billion to assist those countries that cannot meet daily settlements. So we are resolving that problem in that way. Now, on the larger area of international trade, the basis is production. There are a number of problems in Africa. Some of the companies that wanted to export to China,
or anywhere,
or anywhere,
yeah,
even the United States of America, they don't have enough capacity.
So labor, or from what angle do you mean capacity?
The investment is so small, they cannot produce enough products to sell abroad. I'll give an example. Not too long ago, I had a company based in Tanzania involved in the export of cashew nuts. Okay. They told me that as they were coming to see me at the African Union, they had 14 tons of cashew nuts going to the US, but that was not enough. So the purpose of coming to see me at the African Union, to see if I can link them with the cashew nut producers across Africa so that they can cluster and be able to meet that demand.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
So we are encouraging African companies to say, with your limited investments, we can establish, we can assist you to link you to other producers.
Together. Yeah.
You put it together, you cluster. When you have been able to cluster, you are able to sell at a larger scale. Now, if you sell at a small scale, it's not enough. So you need the money today, but it takes some time. So that's the basis. So the agenda for Africa: expand production, improve export development so that you go into manufacturing and agro-processing.
Sure. Albert, I want to press you on this because as I was talking with Martin earlier about an hour and a half ago, whenever I think of the African Union, 50 plus countries in Africa, imagine one day the African Union, not a mirror copy of what the European Union is, but it had free movement of goods, labor, trade, unified currency. Imagine what that would mean for the African continent. It would be massive, and the population is growing. And
1.4.
Who knows what it's going to be in 2060 plus?
Yes.
But my question is, why isn't that happening sooner? Because the benefits would be incredible. You are the voice of the AU here, and I'm going to be very open and honest.
Yes.
When can we expect that? Because imagine a unified African continent engaging with China. These are going to be the two largest financial powers.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about population dynamics. Right now, the African population is 17.5% of the global population, 1.4 billion people. 2050 is going to be 25% of the global population. 2100 in the 22nd century is going to be 38% of the global population. That is point number one. Point number two, consumption in Africa is growing. When you look at demand for industrial goods, it's 1.5 times higher than the global average. Okay. So to maximize that, we need to aggregate. So we have started the process of regulating by creating the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the first step. The next step is to move towards the African Customs Union. And the ingredients are already there. The first ingredient is that we have a protocol on the free movement of people. We have what we call the single African air transport market. Yeah, from the private sector. If you want to run an airline from Morocco, Casablanca, to any part of Africa, you are free to do so under that arrangement. Okay. Then you've got the protocol on investment, which is harmonizing all the policies on investment. Competition policies, trying to promote fair competition among all the players. And intellectual property rights, so that your innovations are not stolen. That possibility is there. Then there's a first step towards a unified African currency. In 2021, the heads of state and government adopted the macroeconomic convergence criteria anchored on the fundamentals of the levels of inflation, fiscal deficit, the rest of indebtedness to borrowers from other parts of the world, among others. And on the basis of that, we also established the African Monetary Institute, which is going to monitor implementation of the macroeconomic convergence criteria by each and every African country. Then eventually, when we have that one, when we have met the macroeconomic convergence criteria, that's when we have the single currency. But the key is member states doing what is supposed to be done.
I'm going to jump a question to both of you. Hearing this from an AU representative, of course these are brilliant plans. The hope, the objectives are all very clear. When you hear that, what does that make you feel? Is it a sense of optimism, or you still want more? Because we're at a state where, of course, these policies, these goals of essentially of a unified continent,
yes,
to essentially improve the well-being of people's lives, that must bring about a positive reaction.
Yeah,
But
Omar,
do speak your mind.
Yeah, Omar, you know, I do really beg your pardon, Albert. What is actually happening in Africa is a bureaucracy. I think President Xi and head of state in Africa initiatives in 2018 was to let, as I just said, small business owner to fly from Africa to China because they want to make money as soon as possible. And my big concern is that, are we going to wait 2063 agenda plans to implement what should be done before? It is, Mama, I think it is the 2063 agenda by 2063. It's not from 2063. That means before 2063.
There's nothing. No, it cannot be like that.
That's my concern.
Like
that's our concern. And we being an African, we want to see day after days in Africa that we are shipping our goods from Africa to China or from everywhere. Because we are talking right now regarding the cooperation between China
40
and
years.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
To be pragmatic. And in the same way, Mr. Face said something very interesting. The e-commerce.
Let me think about something. Sorry, have to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Just try, okay. I think it's very good. Before 2063, we have to do lots of things. This Expo is good for us getting together and create some, for example, invest pool, like I said. We're helping small, medium-sized enterprises, both China and Africa. Yesterday evening, I received a call from Nigeria. This guy has been to China a few weeks ago, a delegation to visit China. And when he go back to Nigeria, he told me, and he's a doctor too, pharmacy, and said he has a small team, only 3 doctors and a few colleagues. And what they want to do is to create a platform to deliver the medicine and the drug for the Nigerian people, particularly for the rural people, for the countryside. In the city center, it's okay. If you want a drug, it's okay. But for the countryside, it's far away. Lots of farmer and rural people is, like medicines. So they want to create a big network, and every small village has the pharmacy. Or they can order online, create an online, what we call maybe a business, but they're helping. So, however, the thing is they lack of money. They need the investment. Also, they need the technology support for the network building. Online. Not every people can operate the with some phone and or internet. So he asked me, can you help to find some good investors to join? I said, okay, we can fund from both sides, but your team maybe need more international, and you need a good plan. And also we can help them to create this business. from both sides. We can bring good products, we can bring good technology, we can help him to follow a business growth.
I feel you want to jump in.
Yes, I
You're
want to
looking at me.
jump in, but before I jump in, let me distribute my business cards.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, live on TV. Oh,
Yes, that's on TV.
Mr. Muchanga,
Yes,
thank you
I would like to challenge all of you.
do challenge.
Yes,
Yeah,
if
please
you've got
do.
business people,
Yeah.
if you've got business people, small-scale business people, who want to trade across Africa, get in touch with me. I'm going to link them
How
up.
easy is it to get in touch with you?
Yeah,
Sure.
My assistant is there. Yes.
Okay.
He has my business card. Get in touch with me. I'm going to link you to a social enterprise called the Africa E-Trade Group.
Okay.
They've come up with what they call the Sukuk platform, where you can do online trading across Africa.
And it's unified?
It's
So
unified.
if I'm going
it's
from...
unified. It's going to, we are going to celebrate the achievements when there's going to do digital integration on the 7th of July next week.
From Senegal to South Africa?
Anywhere in the world, you just get in touch with me. We'll link you them up to you. And when it comes now to medium and the big companies wishing to trade across Africa, again, I'm going to link you up with the chief executive officer of the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. So I think the issue here is that there's lack of information. We have started the work on the ground. We're not going to wait until 2063. The
So we don't have
Agenda
to wait.
2063 is divided into 10-year implementation plan.
Okay.
We've achieved the last 10 years, 2023. We're now going into the second implementation plan.
The next
and
10
one of the
years.
key achievements of the first 10 years is the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area, opening up this market. So, 2063, I may be dead, but we are making the ground for you people, when you be all the people, to celebrate and to say, this is the legacy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last one, and then we change up. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
I will not distribute my business card live. I would just want to say that as a bank, our group at Tijarifa Bank is not the bank of the elite. We work with corporate, SMEs, small companies. So once again, we're present in many countries in the African continent where we are contributing to the development of local economies. So these actors can come actually to our group, and we have a lot of initiative to encourage SMEs in their development, including the overseas development of the trade business.
Because I'm personally not based in the African continent, but the message and the feeling I get from Martin is that perhaps the big companies, the multinational corporations of Africa, of course they're going to have it easy. Of course they're going to already have those well-established relations with people like Albert, but the little guy, the small boutique firm, the small company that wants to perhaps tap into the Chinese market. You have the largest middle class here. All the spending power of the Chinese market is, African businesses will want that. So I think it's good to hear there are financial institutions thinking in Africa, thinking for Africa, and enable. And you are now.
And we are Africa.
And you have a a presence
Which is
in
good.
China. I want to switch. I'm enjoying our conversation. We've got a little bit of feedback and response. I want to switch to a topic that that is known globally, and I want to first share a story. About 2 weeks ago, I did an interview with a gentleman in Guangzhou in South China. He's from the DRC. He's been doing business in China for 12 years. And I asked him the question, a lot of the narrative surrounding the relationship of China and Africa is it's one-sided, and that Africa should be careful of doing business with China. And he responded to me this way, word by word. He said, African nations can choose their own partners. He was very confident about this. He said, we don't need a lecture from Europe or from America. We don't need the babysitter. And I was curious to get your reaction to this narrative that is often in the media, especially from media in countries that aren't Chinese or African. They all have an opinion on this relationship. I will start with you, Professor Zhou. When you hear this, it's a bit of a prickly topic, but I do want to hear your opinion on this because, of course, the relationship between the African nations and China is their business, right?
Actually, I think from networking part, we need to recognize first. Okay, this is the first step. In this step, we have a basic information exchange and know each other like a nation. Okay, I know you, you know me. And the second part is for more deeper interaction. So this is a very key part. For example, like today or the Expo, we can talk more about business details and discuss about our business cooperation. For example, in the past, people just do exporting. However, now we not just only exporting. We need to probably we invest in local countries, create a joint venture from both sides anyway. So we can work together. We can find the market demand and create the products or service the people need. Okay, and
but
then
your response, still your response to the idea that this relationship is one-sided and people from other parts of the world have an opinion on it who are not even Chinese or African. When you hear that, because like this gentleman from the DRC said, he said, no, African nations choose who they want to partner with. And just as my colleagues have interviewed several ambassadors from African nations not too long ago, there was a big event in Shenzhen, and the constant question of this Chinese debt trap, of financial aid and then being stuck in this. A lot of the Chinese African ambassadors to China said, well, look, we're not being colonized by the Chinese, they're building infrastructure. So if they're going to build me a road and a hospital and an airport, I don't mind being in debt, because this is good debt. So again, I push you to give me an answer on on this negative narrative that describes your country's relationship with the African continent. How do you respond to this?
I think for infrastructure construction is good. For economic development, you have to have some basic support conditions, the road and the manufacturers as well, and we need a neighbor. So from the first part, we can move to a second part to helping people to do more entrepreneurship. Yeah. Okay. And doing the business and the learning.
Very diplomatic answer. I know both of you two keep looking at me. You want to jump in. I'll give Martin first and then you, okay? And by the way, we have about 5-6 minutes left. I'll wrap up with one more question. I know time is going by very quick. But your answer to my question, go ahead.
Yeah, directly. Once again, I can't agree more with the guy from DRC because we clearly understand that he's on the field.
He's been here 12 years.
Yes, and he's aware about what is happening in Africa. Let's just move in the fields of medicals and pharmaceuticals, where we have been dealing, we have been struggling. Just imagine that because we are trying just to defend Africans, business owner, but what about the other side? I'm dealing at the same time with Chinese and Africans.
You're in the middle.
For example, let's see. Medicines is essential base, let's say essential needs for Africans. But to register a single medicine in Africa, you need to face 25 regulations. That means country per country has its own regulations. Medicine that we are imported to Cameroon before going to DR Congo. We also need to register our product there. We also need to face such kinds of regulatory barriers, regulation and so on. That means the guy is really aware about what is happening on the field. And I think African Union use to try to see how they can arrange it to make business soft, easier.
Smoother.
Yeah, both sides.
Perfect. Albert, again, to my question about African nations picking who they want to partner with, you're no longer needing lectures from other parties.
I'll begin by saying that we are living in the age of the social media.
Unfortunately.
And in this age, everybody is a journalist. But not everybody is a trained journalist. So that being the case, the ethics are not being fully observed. And because the ethics are not being fully observed, that's propaganda.
Yeah.
So what matters is what is happening on the ground. what is only happening on the ground is that Africa, right now, in the words of the Economist magazine, is the richest continent in the world in terms of natural resources endowment. Yeah. And because of that, many partners across Africa would like to have partnerships with Africa. We have a partnership with China, we have a partnership with the UK, we have a partnership with the European Union, we have a partnership with the United States of America, a partnership with Canada, a partnership with Turkey, and also South American countries. We are renewing that partnership.
And it's your choice.
So, yeah?
And it's your independent choice.
It's our independent choice. And the basis of that independence choice is interdependence and mutual benefit.
Respect as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is going on. Not too long ago, we had the US-Africa summit. A lot of aid was announced to Africa. And before that, we had the Africa-EU summit. Again, a lot of aid was announced. Now we have this relationship with China. So it's a question of partnerships. So at the end of the day, to say, is there mutual gain? If there's mutual gain,
then take it.
Yep.
And go with it. Okay. Very diplomatic answers from everybody. There are a lot of topics we didn't get to. I wanted to discuss the Belt and Road Initiative. That is a very heavy infrastructure program that is obviously not only limited to Africa, but it's Central Asia, Southeast Asia. Of course, we could have dived in more into that 2063 future plan for the African continent. Of course, I was at a seminar yesterday about women empowerment between Chinese women and African women. It was a very good event. R&B internationalization, I'm sorry I didn't get to that with you. But again, I think we have, the time has gone by very fast. It's 11:45. Albert, Martin, Xiaofei, and Madame Dakuni, thank you all for joining me today. I hope you guys all got to share what you wanted. Time flies. I know it's difficult, 5 people on one panel, everyone to share, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was our live stream this morning. For those watching, again, you can rewatch this on our website, cgtn.com. Of course, this will also go on Weibo, YouTube, Twitter, our official website, and our app. I will be live again later today, this afternoon, around 3 o'clock. I will be visiting the Expo, so please make sure to tune into that. We're going to be taking a look at some of the infrastructure focus between the African continent and China. So remember that. That's later today at 3 o'clock, 1500 Beijing time on CGTN. Again, on behalf of myself and my 4 distinguished guests, hope you guys all enjoyed that lovely conversation. Again, a lot more to discuss, but that's all we have for this time. Thank you for watching, and see you later.